at you at the mirror, that's got form to it. But who you are is infinite and divine and perfect, and if you could just live from that place, she said, it will transcend all of the fears, all of the worries, all of the illness and so on that we have on our planet. You just have to be yourself, who you are. And that's what I spoke about when we came out here, the difference between being ordinary and extraordinary. Extraordinary encompasses ordinary. We're all following the rules in some way or another and filling out the forms. But extraordinary means I treasure my magnificence, who I am, every moment that I have. That's the power of intention, which is something I wrote, and the power of now, which is something that you wrote. It's just really about breaking it all down, just treasuring your own perfect magnificence.
Yes. So being extraordinary really is to be awake, to be an awake being, not moving in the dreamland of complete identification with thinking, but to be aware, to be present. That's the extraordinariness, is the awareness. You are that awareness. And then the thinking that arises out of that is a different kind of thinking. It's not the thinking that you need to actually decide, I'm going to think that kind of thought now, I must try to be positive. That's no longer necessary. The thinking becomes more empowered that arises from awareness. And in that awareness, for example, gives when I give a talk, and you also, of course, and many of you have also experienced it to some extent in certain situations. The words come, they're not premeditated, they're not prepared. I don't know as a person what the next word is going to be that comes out of here. So the words which are verbalized thoughts, the thoughts come out of the field of aware presence. And so that's Jesus said that whenever you don't need to know what to say beforehand. He says the Holy Spirit will tell you what to say. It moves through you. And so then thought actually becomes more empowered too. And then the one consciousness can also create through thoughts that come through you and can create things in this world that you could never even have thought of before. Things have come into my life I couldn't if I had been practicing positive thinking. At some stage in my life I did do that also, but I couldn't even have imagined things like that. And so really to rest in sourceful awareness, and then you will see that the dysfunctional nature of thinking that is there when you do not rest in the stillness of being, then that becomes removed, and the thoughts that do then come are fresh, alive. Far fewer thoughts come because all that mental noise goes, the burdensome, continuous talking in your head, continuous criticizing and judging and complaining, that's still many people's normal state. To have that in that field of awareness, that if not all at once, it dissolves, and then fewer thoughts come, but they are fresh, alive, they make a difference in persons' lives. And so our primary task is, again, what Jesus perhaps we're talking about this again, Martha and Mary. Martha trying to get things busy, get doing things, preparing the meals. Come on, help me, do this, do that. Walk. And Mary is sitting listening to Jesus, not just listening, she's into, and Martha says, come help me, we've got things to do, there's so much to do. And Jesus says, don't be concerned, Mary has chosen the better part, only the one thing that matters, and really he's talking about the foundation, which is to be, being. And then the doing will come, look after itself. You don't become inactive, but that's the point of rest, and that's the Tao again. You do nothing and everything gets done.
Right.
You don't have a feeling, I am doing it anymore.
When you're writing, is it the same? When you're writing, you write like I do. You write by hand.
I write by hand on a yellow notepad.
I use white.
Oh.
But I'm only number 3, so I'm taking notes. Will you jot down yellow? But is this the same way? What you were as you were describing that
Yes.
about what you were speaking about, I was thinking, I just wrote a whole book without an outline. I mean, I just sat down every day, 4 hours or 5 hours a day. I would just sit, and I would just, whether it came or didn't come, it didn't make any difference. I was there, and the writing was just,
Yes.
it's all channeled. I mean, it's all coming
Yes.
from.
It's to be there, to have this. The space is there. You are there. You are the space for it to come through. And on some days, nothing comes, and then you have to be just fine with that. You sit there, and nothing comes. It's fine. The next day, nothing comes, and suddenly.
It's an avalanche,
Yeah.
you know. But you're saying nothing comes. But what people will ask me, is that called writer's block? That's not writer's block. That's just the joy of being there and realizing that writing isn't what takes place today. It's so joyful.
If you can't accept that nothing comes, then it's writer's
Yeah.
block.
Yes, right. Right. Yeah. It's just so peaceful and so beautiful. That's a new way of writing for me. And I sent. As a matter of fact, when I did the John of God story, I decided to write the entire thing out and put it in the book. And I sent it to my editor. Now she's been editing everything I've written. 37 books since 1971. All right. And she called me up and she said, "Who wrote this?" I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "Well, there's like 17 or 18 pages here, and it's not in your handwriting." I said, "What do you mean it's not in my handwriting?" She said, "Well, the slant is different, the shape of the letters is different, the wording is different. You didn't scratch anything out," because I'm writing if something I don't like it, I just scratch it out and write something else. She said, "It is," and she said, "and I can't edit any of it. It's just." And literally, something when I started telling the entities that came into my body and did this healing and sent this dis-ease out and replaced it with love, also were a part of my writing. It was just so sweet and magical. And I framed one of the pages there because I've never written like that before. I've never had my letters go this way and the shape of them and everything else. It was like something just came in and took over and just allowed it to come forth. Mm-hmm. That's what can happen. Eckhart, you're talking about this spiritual sort of inner kind of awakening with the formless and so on, but it gets translated into so many changes that can take place in your life. That business about paying attention and being astonished. I'm just astonished at it all. I mean, I did a yoga class before I came over here. I'm just astonished that at 71 I can go into a 105-degree temperature room and do 90 minutes of yoga and walk out and feel great and sit down with Eckhart Tolle and talk to thousands of people all over the world. All of it just blows me away, every bit of it. And all of these faces, all of these nodding, all of this love that's in here, and even being with you, it's so wonderful to have this closeness together. Yeah, it really is. God bless you, man. Yeah.
A question from our online audience. someone wrote in, since you're both very popular and successful, how do you remain humble and in touch with everyday people and situations and not let your ego take over? It's very tempting, this person imagines, to get the best table at a restaurant, the best of everything in the material world, etc. So how do you stay humble?
And I'll respond.
Well, as Woody Allen said, being a celebrity has its advantages. It gets you a good table in restaurants. The answer really is what not long ago, 10 minutes ago, I mentioned, not to accept internally a conceptual sense of self that perhaps the world is telling you about who you are. So I remain humble, but not. I said I'd drop it like a hot potato. I don't want to carry around a conceptual identity, because I have experienced in my life how much suffering comes into your life when you live from a conceptual identity in your head of who you are, some idea in your head of who you are. I know that that is the beginning of delusion, and I'm not having it. So it's an internal decision. It's a dropping it. And on a practical level, I still often do my own shopping. I go to the supermarket. It's an ordinary life. Everything, nothing extraordinary in daily existence. So it's that's how it happens, and I know how it happens to you. But now you're going to talk about that.
You just get more comfortable with being alone. And because, in the Course it says, if you knew who walked beside you at all times on this path that you have chosen, you could never experience fear or doubt again. And when I guess you just get to a place where you know you're not alone, and the things that everyone out there thinks that they would do because they would be rich and famous, like Wayne Dyer or Eckhart Tolle, when you get to that place, you don't want it. Honestly, you don't want it. I give away almost everything that I get, and I have children who are very willing to help me with that. 8 of them. I own almost nothing. I mean, everything that comes, I don't want gifts when people send them to me. I just donate them. And I ask my children to please don't send me presents on Christmas and birthdays and all of that. Just think about someone else someplace who could use that more and give it to them. And I don't mean that to say that because I'm so altruistic. I just am not attached any longer to... honestly, I tell my kids and people that I love that I don't really feel even attached to this world anymore. I really don't. I get a lot of adulation and adoration, and it's wonderful, but I don't take any of it seriously. I don't want things. It's just, I prefer an evening, even when I'm on the road and I'm speaking or whatever, and they have some kind of a gathering for me or a nice restaurant. You rarely see me in a nice restaurant or any restaurant. I prefer to be with people I love, close to me, and or alone with God. And to me, an evening to meditate and to be silent and to read, or to just... I live right on this beach for a good part of the year, and on Kaanapali Beach here on Maui, and I look right out. I'm so blessed. I look out at this ocean. I watch the whales. I swim every day in the ocean. I talk to the whales. I hear them. I swim with turtles out there, these great big sea turtles. I have names for them. I know the markings on them. I spend a lot of time in just peaceful walking and meditating and doing yoga. I mean, this and making a difference, and everything that comes into my life, I just pass it along. And I don't even want to talk about what I do for others, because it's not about bragging or talking about how wonderful I am. I do almost all of it anonymously. But it's just, I mean, you've spent a lot of time, I have too, over the years with Oprah Winfrey. I mean, she has said it many times that people like us who, I mean, she came out of the Deep South, poverty. You didn't come out of wealth. I mean, you struggled when you were a young man a lot, knew about hunger and so on. When these things when they come to me, I'm unattached to it, and the most ironic thing about it is that the more I am that way and less inclined towards my ego and the stuff and who I am, and more stuff just keeps coming. It comes in bigger and bigger amounts, and it allows me to do more and more and more. Oprah has said the same thing to me. I'm sure she said it to you personally as well. It's, you know, I get on an airplane, and I sit down on a seat, and I see a short woman with a bag trying to put it up above, and I just sit there and thank God for the opportunity to stand up and put it in the overhead compartment for her. Now, I don't know if that sounds strange to you, but I feel like, and it happens to me almost every time that I'm on an airplane. Some little lady who just can't quite reach, and I think, oh, this is so great. I get to reach up, and I get to put her bag up there, and so I just think all of the opportunities that come to you to serve are the joy that you get out of this place. And I also remember that there's no luggage rack on a hearse. All right, there's nothing to take with us. That who we are is just that which keeps occupying all of these bodies, and because they keep changing, they're not real. And that's what Anita discovered, Anita Morjani, in her near-death experience, she's totally cancer-free today. Beyond miracles. They sent her case all over the world to all the cancer institutes. No one has ever returned from that. And she's back talking about the bliss, the perfect joy, the recognition that higher awareness, which you talk about so beautifully in your last book on the New Earth. She said higher awareness is when you get to a place, like when you're in your dreams. Thoreau said that you're most enlightened when you are in your dreams awake, when you're a waking dreamer. Because in your dream, for 1/3 of your life, in your dream, all you have to do is put your attention on what it is that you would like to have, and it's there. If you want a new Mercedes in your driveway, you don't have to get up and go down, all the trouble, get dressed, drive the car, test it, find the money to pay for it. You don't have to do that. You just put your attention on that. And if you want your grandmother back, who's been dead for 20 years, she's there. Anita's father was there with her, telling her, it is not your time. If you go past here, you can't go back, but you can still go back, and you have something still to do, to teach something. So she put her awareness on her father, and while she was in the coma for 30 hours, she saw her brother get on an airplane in India to fly to Hong Kong to be with her for her last breath. She could see him on the airplane. Higher awareness, I think we can do this when we're awake. Highest awareness is anything I place my attention on, I become it. It becomes me. It's not something that's distinct from me. It's not something that's separate from me. All I have to do from a place of God-realized love, and you become it, whatever you're placing your attention on. You do it for 1/3 of your life, and you can do it in the other 2/3, I think, as well. That's my reaction. Yeah. Thank you.
This questioner asks, I have contemplated what the meaning of life is, and I can't find it. There appears to be no real meaning or purpose to it. other than to enjoy it as much as you can. But at the end of it, your life is as insignificant as an ant's life or a blade of grass. And awakening does not happen for everyone, so awakening to self-realization cannot be the meaning either. Could you both please comment?
That reminds me a little bit of the Old Testament book of Ecclesiastes, which starts, vanity of vanities, all is vanity. How that got into the Bible, I don't know. It's a beautiful piece of literature, and it's obviously written by somebody who's very tired of life and has seen it all and can't find any real meaning in it, because he's looking for meaning on the level of mental concepts. And if you look for meaning on the level of mental concepts, all you can find is transitional, temporary things, belief structures, belief systems even, that can be satisfying for a while, but sooner or later your belief system will clash with reality and will lead to suffering. So to look for the true meaning of life cannot be found. At the beginning of our talk we mentioned Course in Miracles saying, your understanding is not a powerful contribution to the truth. And we also mentioned maybe I didn't mention, that a Zen master, a little tiny Zen story to again illustrate this. The Zen master asked the disciple in their usual seemingly fierce way, "Do you understand Zen?" And the disciple says, "No, master, I don't." And the master says, "Neither do I."